What's up, and welcome to the Sisterhood Corner. To the newbies, welcome. To those who've been here before, welcome back. Some new set of letters to read. The first one is more of a cautionary tale. I received a letter from a lady. She sent me a voice note from a lady who is 65, right? And I think that, she did say in the beginning that it comes from a place of she sees a lot of young women, chasing rich men and all of that. And she just thought she would share her story. Because I think more than anything, she says the one thing that bothered her, it's the saying, it's better to cry in a Bentley than, in a shack. So she wanted to just send like a cautionary tale. So it's not one of those advice letters, but it's just a cautionary tale to young ones. And it reads as follows, right? Cautionary tale. Rich and sad. Hi, Sisterhood Corner. Hope this reaches you before the next young woman makes the same mistake I made. I'm a 65-year-old woman with an adult son. He is my only child, but believe me, that was not by choice. In my prime, at the age of 24, I used to turn heads everywhere I went. I would turn heads, literally. Though I was aware of that, it didn't really drive me crazy. I was relatively humble, though I will admit the attention was flattering. It is during this time that I met the man who would become my husband. You see, in my time, or should I say, during that era, the dream was to marry a man that would take care of you, as well as your children, once you married, meaning that, a man had to have his own. And that used to be the standard of, quality marriage. All right. So when I met this man who was not only handsome but rich, I couldn't believe my luck. He was 15 years older, but that wasn't an issue as my mother was in my ear about the importance of marrying an older guy, as guys my age would do nothing but waste my time and, waste my beauty. So a much older and established man, was a catch. Looking back though, I wasn't really in love, but rather in love with the idea of being the envy of every woman in my village. Also, my family and friends, couldn't stop raving about how lucky I was to be chosen by him. So I suppose I fell into all of that hoopla. I gave in, we had a brief courtship, and he sent his people to my family to pay lobola for me. We got married, and our wedding was the talk of the town. I say talk of the town because though we were from different villages, it was all in the same town. So the whole thing made a big spectacle, two people from two different villages within the same town type of thing. And also, the fact that he was prominent, I guess that's what made it a big thing. I moved into our newly built home and went straight to driving school. On completion, he bought me a car and started teaching me all about the businesses he ran. So I went straight into sort of like what does she say? I went into like sorry guys, I normally rewrite the thing. So I get it if I get it in audio, I have to rewrite. So I'm trying to see what I wrote here. Oh, okay. So I went into an sort of like an internship, I think she says here, yeah. He ran a few stores, which he owned, alongside 2 bottle stores. Back then, such businesses were owned by rich Black people. So imagine me being the wife of, and then being behind the counters, and the respect that came from both the employees and the community at large. Now, what I've just described was just the exterior. On the outside, I was the lady who had it all: a rich husband, a son, a car to go shopping with, and I dressed impeccably. What a lot of people didn't know is that behind the makeup, the sunglasses, and the lovely dresses was a bruised woman. I am talking physical bruises. I always wore long sleeved dresses to hide the bruises on my arms. I wore shades to avoid people seeing the bruises. And if I didn't have the shades on, I had lots of makeup on. My marriage was nothing but decades of hell. I was physically abused for years and lost pregnancies due to that. Hospitalized a couple of times, but still making sure all of that was covered up. I never dared to tell anyone, as this would damage my prominent man's image. But for every abuse endured, I still had to show up and play the wife, the happy wife role. Fast forward to today, I'm an old lady who suffers from depression. He passed away 10 years ago, and though I thought his passing would be the end of my suffering and I'd finally be free, it's interesting how he still haunts me from the grave. The only thing that helps is my weekly therapy. Granted, I was left with all the wealth accumulated, but the emotional scars remain. I am an empty shell. I don't know if ever, I don't know if I will ever feel like myself again. So whenever I hear young ladies say things like it's better to cry in a Bentley, my heart breaks. All I'm going to say is all that glitters is not gold. All those pretty pictures you see of women arm in arm with rich men are not things to envy. You simply don't know what happens behind closed doors, and you simply don't know what they go through in private. Just a note from an old lady. You can take it, you can choose to listen, or you can choose not to. But at least I've given you something. She signs off. Well, I don't have anything to add on to that, but well, I do. I always have something to add, but I really appreciate you sending that, particularly in this era where we live in a society where material things are everything. Even just the regular greeting. So before somebody greets you, they take a look up and down to calculate the amount of respect to give you. But I really thank you for that, because I think the society now is it's a mess, and I think social media hasn't really helped. Everybody wants what they see, but what they see could not necessarily be the real thing. It's a fake. A lot of this life is make believe, and perhaps maybe more people like you. I wish more people like you would write in with their own stories, and perhaps people can start thinking differently and looking at this differently, because people think, oh no, money is everything. But I totally agree with you. You can, like you sit now, you have all of these, the wealth was left to you, but your soul, like you call yourself a shell, an empty shell. So people now need to really, for all the young girls out there chasing the rich men, think about how this could be you fast forward, and you could find yourself with money but empty, with money but with a lot of emotional scars. Remember, physical scars heal, hey? But the emotional ones, now that can torment you for life. But once again, thank you, Mama. Thank you so much for sharing this. As to whether they'll listen, I don't know. But those who are already in the situation, you're welcome to write in as well and share your stories. But those who are not yet in there, I hope some of you listen and take this with. Thank you so much, Mama, for the cautionary tale.